killed. I think Jack.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, there you go.
No.
Hey, Bridge, what's happening? We are splitting the gears. We're gonna be a little low key tonight because I think we're all feeling a little bit low key. Just taking this chance to chill.
Oh yeah.
Ix, give him the movie phone.
Hello, and thank you for calling Gear-Splaining. If you know the name of the gear you'd like to hear, press 1. Enter me now.
Oh God. You did that not only way too well, but you put the very ixy dirty joke in there without even like missing a beat. It's like you practiced that.
It's like I know how to do this shit.
Yep. Damn.
Using your touchtone phone, you've entered Korg.
Enter me now.
Enter me now.
There has been, since the last Gear-Splaining, which was 2 weeks ago, no new gear news. So
well,
there's really
some.
What? I can't even think of it. What was it?
Well, we can talk about the price fixing.
Oh, okay, yeah, we could do that. That's
the
not
price
bad.
fixing is a returning story.
Yeah, that's true.
Was it just that it's coming to a close, that they were all assholes and they're getting fined or something?
Yeah.
There's an official judgment against them. Yeah.
Everybody is an asshole apparently, except Yamaha, but they just because they settled. And then they threw everyone else to the fucking wolves. If you'd like your price fix done by Korg, press 1. For Roland, press 2.
You mean that's the most Yamaha thing ever.
For Behringer, press 27.
For Roland, also press 27.
You pressed Yuli's cock.
Ooh.
Rated R. Oh my. You just lost all your audience, by the way.
Let's see. So tonight we're going to cover Westworld. There's the Zencore thing. We're probably going to talk about V7, right? Because that's just cool. And we were digging into that earlier. So we can actually do a deep dive on some stuff there if we feel like it. What else? What else is cool to have in the Gear world?
Oh, I mean, those are the plugins that I sent over that Co was playing with. Those are fun.
What were those?
I just played with the one ghost tune.
Faded Instruments. Did you see the other one?
Oh, yeah,
it's like these insane FM, weird, crazy synths and stuff like that. Like all of the stuff that this dude does is just kind of like, I got high one night and decided to, and decided that, you know.
I've got the video queued up.
Yeah.
Play that really quick. Who do we have on so far? We have Mr. Bridgewater.
Mr. Bridgewater.
Yep.
That's all we need.
We
don't need anybody else. Oh, there we go. Girl Geek, you're gonna love my nuts.
You're gonna love my nuts.
Hello, and thank you for calling Movie Phone, where you'll love my nuts.
Stop having a boring tuna. Stop having a boring life. That was his saying. It was stop having a boring tuna. Stop having a boring life.
I don't know who this person is.
Vince Shlomi.
Oh, I don't pay attention to.
It's the ShamWow guy.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah, we just talked about him, but I just don't know his catchphrases.
Oh, okay. Well, everything he said was basically, well, you're gonna love my nuts.
You're gonna love my nuts.
That was his thing. He said, "You're gonna love my nuts." Okay. Maybe known for something. Vince Shlomi was also apparently known for he got beat up by a hooker, and that was scandalous. I guess.
Does.
Yeah. He did the Underground comedy movie, which was apparently one of the worst movies of all time. Even people who like underground stuff thought it was awful. He
Good.
did the ShamWow. Now the ShamWow was an authentic hit, but I mean, come on, those are towels, man. He
Yeah.
made those towels. He was a good salesperson. He made it seem like those towels were able to suck up more water than like the volume that which they
I mean,
existed
they
in.
were selling chamois, and chamois are some kind of a miracle of modern physics. Like, the fact that they soak up as much water as they do, and they're like hydrophobic surface, so that as you wipe up the water, they act as like a squeegee, just naturally. All it is like sheepskin. But
Yeah.
they were like,
Much
yo,
like my
it's
condoms.
sheepskin, but we call it ShamWow! And
ShamWow.
I think it was just the first time a lot of people were introduced to the concept of a chamois. And
yeah,
I think that's pretty magical if you've never seen one before. I was blown away the first time I used a chamois. I'm like, how is this? This isn't real.
His claim, though,
I'm playing a video game. What's going on?
His claim was that it would take up 20 times its weight in water.
I think that's probably pretty accurate because they don't weigh shit, and the amount of water that they do soak up is like breathtaking. I just recently got a new chamois because, as you know, I've had some liquid issues in my home, and I needed a way
flooding, all you need was like 2 ShamWows.
Yeah, kinda. So the one in the laundry room, I just threw down a chamois. It was a really good size chamois, and waited for it to saturate. I picked it up. It was like, yeah, granted, I haven't been working out as much since I've been stuck in the house due to beer bug, but man, that thing was heavy as shit. And then I go to wring it out, and it's like sploosh. and then like I can tell it's still got water in it, so I like fold it in half and then twist it again. It's like sploosh, like deluge. And then I fold it once more and I twist it again, and it's like at the same amount of deluge. I must have unloaded like a bucket and a half of water out of this stupid cloth. It was nuts.
You're gonna love my nuts.
So yeah, as far as this, one of the, what is this thing? The VST. This is worth mentioning because it's so bizarre. I'm gonna flip over really quick. So this one, Ghost Tones, which is free, right? The ad line for it says, ever wanted a psychoacoustic synth that never plays the note that you're playing, but instead chooses 2 random notes that tricks your ears into thinking you're hearing your note? Didn't think so, but here it is. And then, yeah, I'm going to go to a little more info. Their site is... Okay, so Ghost Tones is a simple synth that doesn't ignore you, even though it seems like it is. Let's see. What does it say? It plays 2 random notes that create a third note that only happens in your ear, and the note that you wanted to play. So it's like just throwing off these 2 seemingly random notes that somehow resonate in your ear to make the original note that you wanted to play. And they say do a spectrum analysis, and you'll see that it never plays the note that you're playing, but you'll hear it anyway. And the technique is quite sensitive, so it only works at loud volumes, high frequencies, and if there aren't any other sounds happening. It's very fragile and exists at the threshold of pain. But it's real, it's fascinating, and it reveals something about how we listen and how our bodies work.
Is this like the note doesn't happen digitally and it only happens when like there's a phase cancellation midair or something?
Something like that. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it says
since free, or you gotta buy it.
It's free. Since the synth is choosing random notes, you can select the general range that it chooses from, and then it'll require a specific high frequency range. But you know, they wanted to give you options for the full spectrum if you wanted to like make a song or something. And up at the right corner, you can also switch between hearing the note that you're trying to play or hearing the funky ghost tones. Hey, Gal.
Hey, Gallus.
So
that is wild.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah,
it's
so
like a science experiment more than like a music making thing.
Let's fire it up really quick. So I was just playing with some of the controls, and I did have a meter up here so you could see. All I'm doing is playing a D5 and then just fiddling with the controls. And watch the ghost's mouth, by the way. It's great.
Oh, yes. Hey, Slaughter.
It can hit those low tones rather nicely,
Oh yeah.
but of course unpredictably.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Ghost Tones.
Yes.
Free from the Faded website.
That is
instrument.
the must-have synth of the year. Also,
Well, I'm thinking for a next step, I'm going to try playing more than one note. You know, like maybe an E5.
oh,
Just occasionally.
Getting
Don't
flashy.
Don't want to get too crazy.
Getting weird.
try an A sus maybe.
But yeah, also if you turn the decay all the way down on that thing, you do get some fantastic computer music. It's real good.
So yeah, the guy who designed that is a Oberlin College graduate. He was posting they have their electroacoustic music department. So if you need to get like your bachelor's degree in electroacoustic music creation, called the Tamara program, TIMARA. And these guys are literally like weird, crazy cyberpunk performance artists. And they do these shows every year, like these big festivals. And the last time I went with Justin, there was literally some dude that had electrodes all over him that was like somehow like playing music based on what he was doing. And he was pretty much naked except for these electrodes. And at one point something started happening and he said, either there's something wrong with this or I'm having a stroke. I'm not sure which. And then,
It's like,
we
oh
just
wait,
cheered.
it was just sensing my arousal.
Yeah, exactly. This is either my boner or this is a stroke. I'm not sure which. Although one usually leads to another. But anyway, hey.
So they
So
do
yeah,
have
it's
they
weird
do have,
program.
He did go ahead and make a couple of other VSTs, it looks like. This one is Blumen and Flansen, or Blumen und Pflanzen.
Blumen und Pflanzen.
Blumen und Pflanzen.
Yeah, you gotta say it like that.
It's an expressive and unpredictable performance tool.
Unpredictable.
Well, it's a pulsating FM feedback synthesizer / groove machine, a total hunk of an instrument. It provides a refreshing and unique approach to creating odd rhythms and noise that works great for improvising, jamming, resampling, sequencing, and even blowing out your speaker cones.
Stop, X. Stop. Don't even go for it.
Let's give it a listen. Oh, jeez.
Blumen und Pflanzen.
Yeah!
So far, it's just some noise in a square.
I didn't actually think it'd be anything more interesting than that. I mean, the description's all you really need. That's the cool thing.
All right, that's deep.
Oh, I can feel that in my teeth.
Damn, that was great.
That totally removed my fillings.
Yeah, that's real good.
Blumen und Pflanzen is amazing.
So the other one is called Slimer FM, and Slimer FM turns your DAW into a modular FM mega instrument.
This thing is pretty killer.
Yep. Traditional FM synths, they provide a carrier and modulator oscillators to generate sounds, but Slimer FM has no modulator, just an audio input. So using simple routing in your DAW of choice Any synth
Beat it
slash
off.
drum machine slash effects chain can become the modulator, inspiring some weird ass sounds. Essentially, your whole DAW becomes an FM synth.
Yes.
All right,
Can't be better than Blue Moon
I
Flanzen.
got a note. Here we go. Oh, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do an entire Blue Moon Flanzen stream.
I like that they made them in Ableton.
Slimer is a simple but unique little FM synthesizer that turns your entire DAW into a modular FM environment.
The guy's
Whereas
actually
most
sending me all the
FM
serial
synths
numbers for
use
this
a
stuff.
collection of
So.
oscillators to modulate each other and create a variety of timbres. Slimer only has a single oscillator. Instead, Slimer uses a live audio input to FM modulate itself. Through basic routing in any DAW, it allows you to use any signal as a modulator. You can run several instances of Slimer to create subtle but interesting tones.
Subtle but
Or
interesting.
you can run the drum machine, vocal track, or other synths through it for even more complex sounds. I like to set the return tracks of Ableton to send directly to the Slimer, allowing me to send any audio or MIDI track in my production to it, and even add effects into the FM modulation chain, giving me wild and three-dimensional sonic possibilities.
So he has this on his turn. It has to be a VST3 because there's multiple instances open so that it can get different sources.
I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that they did it in Ableton to kind of head off all the Ableton user groups at the pass. So they're like, yeah, but does it work in Ableton? It's like, works in Ableton.
Yeah.
That's not going to stop the Ableton user groups. Have you seen the Ableton?
I bet you,
user
yeah,
groups?
somebody will probably link that video and be like, hey guys, do you know if this works in Ableton?
Yeah, they're gonna. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, and then someone's gonna be like, make sure you mix down -6 dB, bro. That's gonna happen too. Yeah, those Ableton groups are literally the pit of humanity. It's like Yahoo Answers, but for music.
Callus, the Mega FM has arrived. He has been playing with it. It is.
I went to a Mega
glorious.
FM stream with him. It was great. I love watching someone do exactly what Callus is doing. I love doing it myself, but there's something satisfying about watching someone do it where they have just one synth, and it's like, all right, now I'm gonna see what this knob does. Now I'm gonna see what this knob does. Maybe an analog synth, you don't need to do that. But if you're
Right.
talking about like an FM synth, and it's really the first time working on a hardware FM synth with knobs, that can get interesting fast. And it's unique, and you don't exactly know what's going to happen. So that's why I like that. Now that Slimer thing, I'm speculating that has to be VST3 because it looked like it was one instance, but you could open up multiple instances of it on different returns, and then you could send whatever you wanted from the tracks in Ableton to it. So, and I think the concept is if I'm getting it right, it uses other audio as the modulators. So just anything that's happening anywhere you could send into one of the instances of it, and then its output is that. That's pretty freaking cool.
Did you know that VST3 is actually more limited in its routing than VST2?
Really? I did not know that.
It is. It does do some important things that VST2 had a hard time with that were more kind of tacked on or band-aided around. But VST2 was much more versatile. The move to VST3 is actually kind of a big kick in the pants to a lot of people, especially now that Steinberg basically requires that you have special permission to publish a VST2. And it's basically, unless you're a long-standing license holder who has already put out a bunch of VSTs, you're not getting approval to make a VST2.
Well, they're maybe overplaying their hand because there's no rule that says everybody needs to stick with VST for their format, and it would not be hard. It already happens on Mac. There's already AU that doesn't have the same requirements. It would
Yeah,
not be hard for that to be applied on PC.
That's
either.
the thing, though. I mean, it's like, oh, look how pervasive the AAX plugin architecture is. Oh, right, that works in literally one DAW, and
Yeah.
it was the one.
RTOS.
It was the one DAW that was capable of making that flex. They're like, yo, we're Pro Tools, eat a dick, and they could do that. But again, that's the weird edge case. And same thing with Apple. Apple's like, yo, audio units, eat our dick, and people are like, well, you own the platform and Logic, I guess, so cool.
I mean, I paid attention when they did that.
For
and
everybody
they were,
else, there's VST.
that was the most Apple-y move. They thought they could basically like elbow out everybody else by doing that.
No, they I think they had good reasons. Like VST2 has some problems, and audio units fixes a lot of that. Anyone who's
Audio
used
units,
an iPad
VST2 was not
understands
out when Audio
immediately.
Units premiered.
What's that?
Audio Units premiered in what, like 2005? VST2 wasn't around yet.
VST, just VST. Like
Yeah.
archaic VST to whatever. Like it doesn't even matter. Steinberg's unloved baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, but audio units make some serious improvements. Like the things that it does is, I mean, it's the same thing with Apple and a USB, right? Like that's the thing they did right. Windows is just like, I don't know, just put it in the I/O scheduler and let it figure it out. I don't give a fuck. And Apple's like, no, if you have a real-time device that requires data transfer, it gets high priority, meaning it has a low nice factor, which means it gets prioritized by the scheduler and the kernel, and it doesn't get interrupted for fucking anything.
Right.
And DJs everywhere went, oh, thank you, Apple.
And then they put their hands in the air.
You can run
Like they-
Tractor
yeah.
or Serato on like a 2011 MacBook Pro with duct tape on it, and somehow it runs better than your, Dell XPS 13. So yeah, there's that. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying they had their reasons.
Question. My impression of VST3, this sounds like it might be wrong, was that they put a bunch of additional functionality in to allow you to have behind the scenes routing, i.e. like side chaining without having to use custom native applications. That was the big one, the big push, but other things as well. So you could drop
but
utilities all over and then one thing hears it back, like Neutron.
So
Yes, but
they added official ways to route in things like sidechain, audio, MIDI, and a few other things. But in order to do that, they blocked off the workaround that was being used by DAW wrappers everywhere, because unless you're running Cubase, you're not running native VSTs. I don't give a fuck. They're all running in a wrapper. Like Ableton launches a wrapper, launches the VST inside of it. That's how it works. The wrapper is the interface to Ableton.
Yep.
The VST runs on top of it.
Right.
And so that
I would
wrapper,
chill about that. I actually like that in Ableton.
yeah, that wrapper
That's-
was hooking into things in the VST that was just, I mean, it was scraping. It was just like, I don't know, I'm going to cram shit in here and I'm going to pull stuff from here and like I'm going to make my own interface here. And it was a Wild West, and stuff didn't work like you expected all the time, and certain things worked and certain didn't, and the feature set was all over the place. Like some VSTs, if you plugged in like 2 different MIDI inputs, they would crash, and other ones would be fine. It depended. Steinberg wanted to get a handle on that. They released VST3 and said, here's the official way to do X, Y, and Z. Also, A through M, those are all gone now. Like, those roads are blocked off. You can't do that anymore. And so we actually lost a ton of functionality, unofficial functionality, to gain a small subset of official functionality.
Fascinating.
So
I did not know that.
What's there is more stable and more capable than previous, but what's there is less than what was there before.
I mean, that's why Ableton's native stuff works so well. Is they're not even a VST. There's the wrapper for VSTs, and then there's the Ableton stuff, which isn't. It doesn't even have a format. It's just this is what comes with Ableton. It doesn't have any other GUI. It only works in Ableton. You can't like use Ableton plugins in anything else. There's literally no way to do it. And they are stable in Ableton. They use less CPU in Ableton. They're optimized for Ableton's feature set. They're really good too. Ableton has awesome in-the-box plugins. They work excellent. They may be a little bit overused because so many people have them. So you're going to run into some of that. and they may not be as out there. I mean, there's literally nothing quite like the Blumen und Flansen in there, but I mean, Echo is a pretty damn unique creative tool, and the deeper you get into it, the more sound designy it gets, and it uses nothing. It uses like no CPU. You throw Replica on there, you're immediately using 10-20%. They start to add up,
You
right?
picked a gnarly one because Replica is especially heinous.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's not easy on the CPU.
But let's hear it. Let's do like Valhalla Vintage Verb, right?
Yeah.
Most people have that. It's not a CPU hog, but it sure uses more than the Fruity Convolver or the Fruity Reverb 2, or I'm sure whatever's in Ableton.
I especially like using the Ableton native stuff because a lot of it has custom graphic integrations on push. You can put functionality onto the screen on push with other stuff, but it's only like you get knobs and you have to develop your macros yourself and assign what you want, and that's cool. Don't get me wrong, but like if you open up Echo, it creates like an arch that is your feedback tunnel that you're in, and then when you change it, you change the density, and that level of detail and animation, it's just awesome. It's fantastic to play with and look at. It's the thing that makes it closer to hardware than any other kind of software. What's up, DeVolta? What's happening, brother?
Oh shit.
Oh shit. Oh shouldn't.
Oh ShamWow.
So are there any other things from the Blumen und Flansen folks?
No,
No, they have
just those
come out with 3 things so far.
How much was the Blumen und Flansen?
$20.
They're getting $20.
Or
Yeah.
1969, actually.
1969, yeah.
Girl.
I don't know where that came from.
See, now with Callus
Sorry,
saying
guys.
hey DeVolta and Mia now saying hey Callus, and with DeVolta saying hey Callus and DeVolta saying hi Mew now, I kind of imagine that in my
covered-
head as
Yeah.
Callus!
DeVolta!
DeVolta!
Oh, they've covered all the naming combinations possible.
Now we can begin.
Now we can begin.
I see.
Wait.
Hey, who was
DeVolta
asking
has
about
opened
that?
up with a funky drum groove.
Now we can begin.
Who was asking about that? There's like a new person. I don't even know when they joined. The Graceful Bard. They just started posting and they're really nice. They seem pretty cool. They're into like the crazy, stupid synth shit we are. We need to make sure that the people who like, there we are, Graceful Bard. We need to make sure that people who like Live in Necropolis stick around. So everyone make sure you give that person love because there are only so many of us in this world.
It seems that Miyu now is spicing things up with a group of squeaking otters. That's a difficult move, getting all the otters together at the same time with a squeak in key. Indeed.
Grogeek wants to know when Ix's signature move is going to happen.
I know, right?
I don't know
It's
that we're
at the-
talking guitars tonight.
Instead, I got strawberries and whipped cream instead of braziers. So I win.
You know,
It's hard to eat a brazier.
This is a thing that I'm going to talk about at work tomorrow, but I think it's actually relevant here. And with the dearth of gear news, this is gear related. So, Intel processors, right?
Do it.
Most of us have them.
Oh, here we go.
Or we got an AMD. Intel's doing something in their not next generation, but next generation of processors. I think it starts with one called Alder Lake, but it'll probably be like the i7 12 something, right? They are doing a thing where they're combining different types of cores together. So instead of just having like a quad core or a hexacore or an 8-core or whatever, you're going to have 2 different types of cores. The kind of low-powered version of this is going to be 4 what's effectively like atom cores, like total piece of shit, with 1 really beefy like i9 core, like super fast, like 5 gigahertz, but just 1. And then 4 of these little dinky cores. What this means for like music production is scary as hell because of the way that DAWs work. So yeah, exactly. It is the big little thing. Yeah. Or little big or whatever. Yeah, big little. The actual like performance desktop models, they look like they're going to be 4+4, 6+6, 4+8, and 8+8. So, you'll have a decent amount of cores, but there's going to be this split, and I wonder how DAWs are going to deal with that. Are you going to have a way to select affinity so that you can put like, shitty hi-hat samples on the little shit cores, or like
Yeah, they're gonna have to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, the people in the Ableton group are really gonna not be able to
yeah,
understand.
you drop your OBXA on the wrong channel and good luck.
Ableton works with it like this: channel 1 literally gets
Is a core.
core 1,
Right.
channel 2 gets core 2,
Right.
and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And that's how it does it.
And
I
which
mean,
core
I
is
don't know if
which?
I don't know if that's the best way to do it. But they'll have to figure out something else, because otherwise it's like, well, I need to make sure my number 1 or multiple of 1 core is where I put my OBXA. That's going
You
to
can't
get
do
confusing as
multiple.
hell.
Not with the current architecture. Current architecture is a track, like a mixer track, is a core. So
You can't put multiple mixture tracks onto the core, though?
no. Yeah, you will eventually when it round robin. So after you've assigned, if you got 8 cores and you've assigned 8 tracks, the 9th track will have to be time shared.
It'll round right back up, yeah. Yeah, that gets confusing as hell. Shouldn't do it like that.
So we'll see.
Hopefully there's some kind of like
interesting.
scheduler inside or something that's able to
Well, the
route
Windows scheduler is already kind of the laughing stock of the like actual computer people
scheduler
community.
world.
Yeah, it's real bad. Like it's a real hunk of shit. And so to throw something like this at it, oh, by the way, you have 2 totally different types of cores that run now, lol. And then if they decide to throw in something like their Nirvana AI cores as well, which I could see happening. It's happened on GPUs already. All modern GPUs have some kind of tensor cores built in for the most part. And yeah, it'll be interesting.
This is how bad the Ableton group is at understanding cores. At least every day, several times, someone says, yo, which CPU should I get? An i7 or should I get a Ryzen? And nothing else about it. And then they'll put up a link of like a Dell from like 5 years ago. And my friend's selling this. It's got an i7, or I could get this other one. It's brand new. But it's
the only people
lower level.
The only people who are allowed to get away with that are Mac users, because that used to drive me nuts. I'd see it on like the Serato forums. They're like, yo, Serato's crashing. I have like an i7 MacBook Pro. What's up? And I'm just like, what? But that doesn't mean anything. And people would ask the appropriate question. They're like, well, what year? And he's like,
right,
2011. And it's like, okay, well, that changes the dynamic a little bit. But it actually doesn't change it that much on a Mac. Like, it all
it's more understandable
works
on a Mac because they do it yearly and they only put out 5 models of it.
Yeah, but the hardware isn't any different. The software works a little different, though. Like Macs are functionally slower beasts, but in return, you get a very consistent experience. But yeah, that's kind of funny. But yes, I've seen those too much too. Should I get the i7 or the Ryzen? And yeah, the i7 was this thing that I saw at a garage sale down the street.
i7's the best, right, bro?
Yeah, bro. Speaking of, I mean, you can easily discuss, since we're talking about architecture, the whole, switch over from Intel over to the Apple Silicon
100%.
insanity.
Oh my gosh.
Let's explain that one.
Oh my gosh.
So Apple's announcement that I think it was probably the Shady Lake processor that came out and was bugging you. Yeah, and they waited on and waited on and waited on. When finally came out, it was garbage to the point that Apple couldn't update their processors, and they're still pushing out like older computers and stuff. People were getting angry.
Well, they didn't want the product to catch on fire. That was
exactly.
I think a prerequisite.
Exactly. So I think that was probably like, from what I understand, the rumor is that it was the nail in the coffin for their relationship with Intel, and I think that the continuing push with their ARM their A12s and their ARM processing and stuff like that, and realizing that they can get more bang for their bucks with that. I mean, my iPad Pro is pretty much as strong as most laptops I've dealt with and everything like that, and handles things a lot better. You know, so it's just an interesting time to see how this is all going to work out. I'd love
Given,
to get my hands on one of those beta machines that they have.
yeah, I
But
think the big question mark is just going to be software, because we know the chips are good, like they're real
Mhm.
good. And what they're putting in those first laptops, from what I hear, it's going to be basically a power limit wide open A12X.
right,
And it's like, oh, okay, so you're not limiting it to like 12 watts. Well,
right.
shit, let's see what that bad boy can do.
hmm Yeah, and I think that I don't
Interesting.
think that I don't think the software is going to be a problem. Honestly,
Mm,
I think that well, I think that first of all, like how they're doing it, how they did the PowerPC to Intel switch over, which was they started doing this
yeah,
code
that's going to be
flopping and
horrible,
stuff
though.
like that.
That's the thing, is emulation works okay from
Mhm.
other architectures to x86.
Right.
Trying to emulate x86 on on an architecture that is that different, like it's the way that ARM chips work. Like they have very very shallow pipelines. They
Right.
don't really have much in the way of a scheduler or time slicing. Everything's kind of
Mhm.
linear. And so that's the antithesis. That's the exact opposite of how an x86 works, where shit's
Right.
all up in the
Right.
air. It's like, oh no, I'll just kind of fit it in wherever I can. That's why hyperthreading exists. Because like,
Yeah,
oh, we
it'll
have
get
these
there
extra
eventually.
cycles. I don't know, just shove it in there.
Mhm.
We'll figure it
Mhm.
out. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think the more native software they get, that's what's going to make or break it. This is
Right.
going to hurt Ableton users on a Mac. It's going to hurt probably Tractor users and Bitwig users, whatever, the people who are using non-native stuff. For
Right.
Logic users, I'm sure it'll be awesome. Like,
Yeah, I mean they
it'll be
already
badass.
have it running natively.
Yeah.
They already have all their pro apps are already running natively on it. I think that, but it's interesting because I was watching because they did the Worldwide Developer Conference last week, and they were showing some of the technologies and stuff like that that they are doing for the emulations and stuff like that. And it's not bad. I was expecting it to be far clunkier than it was. It actually was not that clunky. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing, is how they're developing that and how they're like really streamlining a lot of that shit. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that the big thing is going to be the fact that a lot of this is kind of like back when the PowerPC switched to Intel. Hell, back when OS 9 turned to OS 10, there used to be a company that put out desktop publishing software called Quark.
Quark
And
Express. I remember that.
And when OS 10 came out, it took them 5 years to finally update their stuff so it could run natively in OS 10. It would only run in OS 9 emulation.
My
And
dad's in desktop publishing. I remember that exact moment in time.
And what happened was Adobe came out with InDesign, which ran natively on OS 10. And all of a sudden, Quark disappeared.
Goodbye, Quark.
And by the time they caught up, it was like 5 years. They literally waited 5 years to put out software. And I think that that's kind of a thing, is that like, how fast, how much does Ableton want to put those things out? And I feel that, judging by the past of how Ableton put out like, a 64-bit version of itself, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, Digicool, the new Apple architecture is an ARM architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for anybody not aware, ARM is a company. It's Acorn Risk Machines, company out of the UK, and they're an IP company. They did build a couple of chips back in the day, and they were kind of very landmark chips for low power consumption at a time when power consumption didn't matter. But it was still like this thing where people look at it and go, holy shit, that thing's running on like 10 watts and it can do how many calculations? That's amazing. But they were very limited. But they took that core technology after a couple of iterations and said, you know what? We can keep making chips, but we can't really compete with the big boys. Maybe we'll license out this technology. And so that's what they do. And it's kind of this fabulous design where you can go to ARM and say, hey, you guys make these CPU cores that contain, ALUs and FPUs, and they contain the neon instructions and all these things that we need to make a functional processor. We just want to do kind of the put it all together at the end part. So we want to add a certain multimedia functions, and we want to add maybe a certain co-processor, but we don't want to have to worry about the cores and about like the basic technology, like the fabrics and the interconnects and the caches. So we'll license that from you, and then Apple in turn hands it off to like a TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, or Global Foundry, or one of the other companies that prints these chips. And then that way, Apple has just had a hand in kind of building the finished product and then paying someone to actually crank them out, and then they use them. It's a great method, and it's how Qualcomm exists, and it's how Motorola does their chips, and it's how MediaTek and Rockchip, and of course Apple in iPads and iPhones and Android phones and everything else. And now that's what they're going to adopt on their desktop processors, which is fascinating.
I would imagine that the development time is going to be insane for like some of the software and things like that, because you can, I mean, they're showing you can run iOS and iPad OS stuff natively in OS 10 or OS 11, I should say now, because it's no longer OS 10. Big Sur is OS 11.0.
11.0. Damn,
Yep,
that's
so,
crazy.
Yeah, because I've showed you I was running the beta. You click about this Mac, it shows 11.0. I'm like, wow, there it is. They didn't hype that at all. But yeah, Big Sur is OS 11.
To that question, let's see, is the ARM architecture is more limited instruction set. That, yes, that used to be very true. It's becoming less true. So if you look at what x86 is, beyond the actual just cores, like the ALU FPUs and FMA and AVX and that sort of thing, like look at what comprises an x86. It's basically like a flea market of different instruction packages. You have like MMX technology. Remember those commercials from back in the day?
Right.
Yeah, that's still in modern Intel chips. That's one of the instruction sets that's available, and it's not built into the main core. It's like an add-on. It's another little facility on the chip. And then you have, like AVX is one, that's another facility on the chip. And then you have your FMA, fuse, multiply, add. That's another thing on the chip. And they just keep adding more and more and more pieces to the chip. ARM started out very pure, of course. As demands changed, people are like, cell phones aren't what they used to be. We don't use flip phones anymore. Our phones are oftentimes our computers. And so you need things like neon instructions, which is their equivalent to MMX, for lack of a better analogy. And a lot of other functions that basically the main cores, they probably could be made to do a lot of these functions, but it's very inefficient. They weren't designed for that. So some of these functions are they're fixed function. Like they know exactly what they need to do. Great example is video decoding, like decoding an MP4 or an H.264. Like that's a known thing. You take input A, you run it through algorithm B, and you get video on the screen C. And so if you can just code that very efficiently and then print that to the chip as your decoder function, like your video decoder function, now you've just added a function. So yes, while they were very limited instruction set, that's changing because of the way that they're being used. And of course, that's up to the end developer, Apple, Qualcomm, Samsung, whoever decides to adopt it, to decide what instructions go in there. Apple's really good about putting a shitload of instructions in there, but also being very smart about which ones they're selecting, how they implement them, and what supporting technologies they put in there to make it operate the best it can. So yeah, weird times ahead for the dog.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what this comes
it's
down
great.
to.
Yeah, it'll be I'm very curious to see how this stuff is going to be, implemented, utilized, and how that's going to, because I'm an Apple guy, obviously, and that's what I do for a living, is I support this stuff. And so it'll be very interesting to see how this all integrates to each other, and how, this is going to change the face of how the people use those products and stuff like that.
So how long do you think it's going to take for
repair.
Ableton to make it over? How much work is it going to take to recode? It sounds like it's not just you can port. It sounds like you have to build a lot of things from the ground up.
If they do a direct port, meaning a straight binary recompilation, in other words, you have the source code that makes logic, for example. All applications, if written in a compiled language like C, for example, you have to take the source code that you wrote, that you can, some human wrote it, and then you run that through a compiler, and the compiler spits out an executable, a binary. And so if they take that source code and they make whatever minor adjustments need to be made for it to even run on the ARM, and then run it through the ARM compiler on an ARM system, they take about, on average, a 27% hit in performance.
Ooh-wee.
So
that is going to suck.
Well, that's pretty good actually. Like all things considered. And that's without any optimization. That's just, hey, make it work. Like do the bare minimum to get it to work and get it to compile. So that's a good starting line. But, you know, the question, how long before they, you know, achieve parity with their previous, I think it's going to depend on the application and the complexity and the kind of challenges that they run into.
What they got to do to maintain then too. If they're supporting, you know, one operating system that is what they've been doing all these years, and then another one they have to rewrite from the ground up or use the compiler, which has the big performance hits.
Yeah,
they want to
it
get to
depends.
parity.
It comes down
What
to
do you
that
do?
source. If the source is pretty universal, like they don't have to make a lot of very specific changes just for the ARM platform, then it's not a big overhead at all. They're still writing the same logic or the same, you know, FaceTime or whatever the application is. It's the same application. There might just be a couple of like little if statement, like, hey, if you detect that this is going to be running on an ARM compiler, use these flags. If you're on an x86, use these flags or Intel. Yeah, that's Meow is right. There often is a lot of assembler code in DAWs, and real-time programs, and assembler is generally written for a specific architecture. Like you're making calls in the native language of the CPU. So that would mean that, like in this case, it would be written for Intel. Now they'd have to rewrite that stuff for the A12X.
All right.
Which
so
they
what
know
about
the A12X
Saw
really
Studio?
well, but you know, it's work.
Saw Studio gonna work on the new
Is what?
Saw Studio?
No, I'm gonna vote no. No, it's not.
Yeah, I'm gonna no on that. Ix, do you know about Saw Studio? You up on
No,
that
I
one?
don't. No.
So Saw Studio is insane. Someone wrote a DAW. What is it, Co? Is it machine language? Machine code? Machine layer? It's like
it's all assembler. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like $3,000, but it doesn't it's intensely efficient. But they can barely like update it. I think it's gotten like one update in like the last 10 years because they wrote it the way that they wrote it. It's worth looking
Well, I mean,
into just to see.
Dude, take
Such
a
a
look at
weird
that
approach.
interface.
Yeah, that interface makes me want to kind of like vomit.
And it's expensive.
So
It is
Yeah.
not cheap. It exists though. It continues to exist, and it's barely changed. And people who use it swear by it. Like it's like the most stable DAW. It never crashes, and they're still using the same computer that they were using to record with it 15 years ago.
Wow,
20
I
years
like
ago.
check out those
I like
fonts.
the system requirements. Windows NT.
Yeah.
NT4.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this
Yeah,
graphic
pretty much,
shows you
yeah.
what they think of themselves as. They think of themselves as like a Pro Tools used to be, you know, not a DAW like
Yeah.
we think of a DAW. We think of DAWs as Ableton or Logic or Reason or Fruity
Right.
Loops, FL Studio. What we're really talking about is like music creative tools. This is straight up sound engineering. They don't even care about the creative portion. The creative portion happens before the microphones, you know, before the preamps.
Right.
The goal here is to get into the multi-track, and then you have control over channel strips, and just a huge number of them can happen without them screwing up.
Ooh, look,
there's Comic
it can do
Sans.
video now.
Whoa.
Yep.
That
They can
seems
have
right in their
video
wheelhouse.
clips be marked and laid out as entries along the timeline so that you can do like scoring.
I'm surprised
Yep,
they have a
and
timeline.
You could make it as complex as you want. The video clip itself is the only thing that's gonna like
Look how
really
easy
hurt
the
your
automation
CPU.
is. You just open up this menu and you see every automation target under the sun in a single
Yeah.
block menu.
Hey, do you like menus? Because we got some menus.
Yo,
I guarantee
dog.
some of those menus have menus.
Oh, look, they got a little like 3D FFT signal thing. That's neat.
Ooh, that is kind of pretty, actually.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a GNU plot. You just spit out a CSV and run it through GNU plot, but like in real time.
It looks like the way we analyze stuff back when we had like 256-bit like color.
So
Oh
I
wait,
don't
hold
know
on.
if
There's
this-
plugins?
This page just
I-
keeps going, man.
I'm kind of like
Did I just see Roger Rabbit?
I just went to like their you know their sale pricing
Mm-hmm.
section.
Yeah.
And it literally just took me to a fucking domain a fake domain site. Like literally, they're like,
Interesting. Do you know that
that's
they're?
the store.
Oh, it's a landing page. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's a landing page, but
Yeah.
you can click on like if I click on like one of the things, the store studio, I can get 50% off my sex toys.
Nice. Saw
But I can't
Studio.
buy the
So check that out.
Saw Studio sells some sex toys as well as
Saw Studio
does.
Full was $700, but then Saw Studio 64 is $1,000.
Oh, the levelizer. It's
Yeah.
for sizing your level.
You want a frequency analyzer? That's going to be $100.
Wow.
You want your sack? Sack's going to be $700.
I want my sack.
Yeah.
I will pay $700 for my sack. Thank you very much. It's worth it.
Yeah, this is the best. That whole Saw Studio Full 700, and then the next one you see is like another version that's better than Full. You're like, oh fuck you.
Well,
Oh, they have a
64,
MIDI
yeah.
workshop. A 64-bit
Ultimate.
add-on product for Saw Studio 64 host program requires Saw Studio 64 to even work. This adds 128 tracks of MIDI recording. Okay.
So it doesn't have it doesn't have MIDI on its own?
No, you have to add that.
You have to add it for another $300 after you spend $1,000 on
Yes.
your okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right. Their Facebook presence is hysterically small. They have 73 people have liked the Saw Studio Facebook page. There's
Well,
another page called
I'm fascinated
Learn
now.
Saw Studio that's a little bigger.
I need to know. Okay, so we got Saw Studio 64, right? And you see it's got a bunch of crap, right? But then you have SAC. And SAC, as far as I can tell, it's the software
SAC.
audio console. So I guess if you want a mixer with your DAW, it costs money. And then if you want to do MIDI, it costs money.
This is why there's 70 people that like it on Facebook.
Oh, and
all
if you
70
want a
of those
meter,
people are in their
yeah.
70s, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah,
They're
no,
all
I understand.
Their story as well. Saw is how we got off tape in the 90s.
Right.
Fascinating.
This is all coded by one dude. There's one person, and which makes
Yeah.
sense when you look at the business model. This business model is not designed for scalability. This
He's like
no.
a flourished
possibly-
version of Ix. He's Bob Lentini.
Bob Lentini.
Lentini. Yes, he's definitely part of the Lent crowd.
Yeah, RML Labs, Robert M. Lentini.
Lentini. Yes, we sent the Lent clan. We're from the village of Lent in the Netherlands, and
you
we
felt
sent
his
them to
Lentness.
Italy because they were horrible, and that's what the Lentinis came about.
Well, if
That's
it's
the
not
history.
from the village of Lent in the Netherlands, then it's really just a sparkling Lentini.
It really is, right? Yeah, it's just I mean, Lentinis are fine, but and not saying anything bad, but it's not a Lent.
As
You
long as
know,
it's an
it's not
apple
the-
Lentini.
The finest Dutch Lent money can buy.
Oh, that could be like a stroopwafel Lentini.
Yes. No, just a stroopwafel Lent is what we call it, actually, because
Oh,
we're
I
not
like
from Italy.
like
yes.
I think
Saw
I still
Studios.
have some.
Every now and
fuck
then
is
I
wrong
like
with
to go back to Saw Studios because, just being totally honest, I'm somewhat enamored by it. I find it fascinating. I find it charming. I think this guy took a passion project on his own and was able to like make a living off of it, and that there was enough people out there that enjoyed it. He was able to continue to find food, and eat, and not be eaten by the world.
I knew somebody in 2001, I believe it was 2001 or 2002, whose name was Dan, by the way, who lived in Romeoville, who had Saw Studio. That was the
Really?
first time. It was actually, yeah, I think it was called Saw Tools at the time. It wasn't called Saw Studio as far as I remember, but I do remember it, and I do remember it being plenty fast, and it was on like maybe an 800 megahertz Duron or something. Maybe 600 megahertz Duron. It was a single core chip running at like less than 1 gigahertz, and it was plenty fast. He had 15 tracks running, and
Yeah,
had
the
no
people who
issues.
use it are like, well, why do you need to get a new
Me
computer?
now? I have seen Temple OS. I have installed Temple OS in a VM, and I have played some of those games and read those rants. That is amazing. For anybody who is not aware of Temple OS, look it up. Go down that rabbit hole, and if you can, try to find the YouTube video where it covers the storied and checkered life of the creator of Temple OS, because it's amazing. And his crush, by the way, if anybody's familiar, she's Physics Girl on YouTube, who
Nice.
does great content. So yeah, Diana.
Temple OS is a biblical-themed lightweight operating system designed to be the third temple prophesied in the Bible.
Yes.
Whoa!
Yes.
Holy
it was
shit.
created by schizophrenic American programmer Terry Davis. He knows he's schizophrenic, but I bet you this guy, if we look him
Yes.
up, he really thinks that 5G is putting microchips in his brain. I'm positive of it. But moving right along, who developed it alone over the course of a decade after a series of manic episodes that he later described as a revelation from God.
Yep.
He wrote it in C.
Yep.
God's language is C. We were all worrying about this. I'm talking about, is it
I figured
English?
it would be
He
somewhere.
wrote-
In America, we're
So,
sure it's English, right?
one of the-
but
one
it's
of the-
actually C.
One of the things that he put in there was like a psalm randomizer, where it would go in and like find a psalm, like a line from a psalm, and then grab like another line from another psalm, and then like put them together. And that to him was like the coded message from God. He would log into his own operating system that he wrote, run the randomizer every day, and whatever it spat out, that was scripture. And he was like, "Oh,
Hot
these are words
psalm.
to live by right here." It was fascinating.
He passed away 2 years
aimbot.
ago.
Yeah, he did make his own version of C for that. I think it was
Holy
Suicide.
Seed, what it's called. Yes.
Yeah, Holy C.
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Holy shit. So this guy,
No,
Holy
Holy
shit.
the operating system
Holy C.
included, Holy C, sorry. It included a flight sim too. So not only was he into OSs and Psalms, but he just thought planes were pretty cool.
Some of the games in there are like, what the flying fuck? Like, they're so weird. It's definitely worth checking out though. And yeah, it's an amazing, strange curiosity.
Wow. This
Bizarre.
is, yep, this is worth diving into. It seems to me like he maybe have been more than slightly schizophrenic, actually, the more I'm reading about it.
You can
This
watch it. You
is-
go to the website and you can watch the video where he talks about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll probably do that. This is gonna be like down the rabbit hole, crazy stuff
Yeah.
mixed with like this human interest thing where you feel like you're watching someone and you feel just awful about what's happening to them, and like this is okay, I'm gonna get into this. I'm gonna watch some
Yeah.
videos. This isn't just gonna be an asshole on the internet. This is gonna be something.
Yeah, no, the video,
interesting.
like Callus called out, it's literally called Temple OS Down the Rabbit Hole by
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Frederick Knudsen. Yeah, it's an hour and a half long, and it's absolutely worth watching every second. In fact,
All right, well,
I'll just link it in the chat. There you go.
There you go.
You're welcome, and I'm sorry.
there is some minor music news. There's not any hardware news. There's no hardware news, none. But there's some actual news worth getting into in at least the music space. So let's get into the Roland one. I posted that in there, Co. So if you thought that Temple OS and Saw were really fucking weird, wait till you see Roland's new marketing strategy. You got it up? Oh my god, it's so convoluted. So Roland released this week. I don't even know if I can explain this correctly, but it is 4 new model expansions. That's what they're calling them. There's model samples, model cycles. That's Electron, but Roland decided to release its own project called Model Expansions. It's a new branding thing for Roland. They love branding shit. For Xenology. They are the JX8P, SH101, Juno 106, and Jupiter 8. It's basically like the plug-out paradigm they had a few years ago, but then they're putting it into their... So not only is it in the Xenology
They're putting it into
plugin,
their subscription paywalled plugin.
it's a subscription paywall plugin, but the subscription paywall also has other plugins that do JX8P, SH101, Juno 106, and Jupiter 8. So what the fuck are
But
these?
they don't do it in the Xenology plugin.
They don't do it in the Xenology plugin, right? And so then they say these are soon going to be added to all your hardware synths that use Xenology. And everyone's like, well, what does that mean? Because the Jupiter already has all this stuff. Jupiter XM already has all this stuff. I don't know, but I think Phantom probably has all this stuff.
Oh no,
So
these
but
are compatible with your Jupiter X and XM hardware too. Just
thank God.
because, yo dog, I heard you like Jupiter XM.
So we made
Yeah.
a software emulation to run on your Jupiter XM.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
made a software
Jupiter XM.
emulation to run in the software emulation on your Jupiter XM of a
So on
Jupiter
your Jupiter
XM.
XM, you could either use Jupiter 8 plug out or whatever algorithm emulation thing, which apparently is an insane number of menu. Did you guys watch that video on how to access that? I posted it into Gear-Splaining. It was hysterical. Someone made a video on how to navigate around the Jupiter XM. Like the menu diving is absolutely bonkers.
Did they make like a flow chart? Like a block
No, but it
diagram?
was like
Because those are the best.
They made it look like a Roland video, and then they made fun of Roland with it, and it was spot on. But so now you can access the Juno that you already have on your Jupiter, or you can access the Zenology Juno, which allows you to apparently in the plugin use this Juno instead of the other Juno as the Juno that you're going to use, and then you're able to design in that plugin sounds for the Juno and then load them onto everything. But they have not said if that's going to include the MC line, even though those are part of Zenology.
So hey, Neon
We
House
confused it?
actually just applied a huge vote of confidence. He
He
said,
hates that.
he said,
He
call
hates-
me in 3 years when they abandon that shit, lol.
They are totally going to abandon
No,
that.
no. 3 years though. 3 years.
That's a long time for
No, that's their
for-
talk, man. Yeah.
Did you just, was it a typo and you meant months, or did you actually
Yeah,
mean
right.
years? Because if you meant
No.
years, that's, man, you just threw
Ira
down.
lasted
When it comes
3
out.
years before they abandoned it. Plug out lasted 3 years before they abandoned it. They only
Well,
did
it
2 plug outs.
Lasted 3 years, which meant that they supported it for about a month and then just didn't kill it for the next 3
Yeah.
years.
Exactly. That's what it was. So this, I don't even understand who buys this, who wants this. So this gives you this
Nobody.
is one plugin that gives you access to these things, but if you have to get it through the subscription paywall, and then you have to somehow they're trying to build up like an ecosystem. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, well, how can we make hardware and software into an ecosystem environment with a subscription fee so we can get right? They're trying to use like all these modern business models, but there's still a hardware company that makes software. How hard is it? Like, if you have a Jupiter XM, do you really need to do sound design on your computer?
You don't have to give them any credit. I'm gonna take umbrage with that, because you know what? DivX was a thing, and I'm not talking about the codec. I'm talking about the physical media format. Does anybody remember DivX?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
anybody that wasn't around during that time,
Video format.
basically it was rental DVDs that would like
Mhm.
self-destruct.
Yep.
Like you could only play
Great
them
for
like
the
twice or
environment.
whatever. Yeah, and so it was like, oh, cool. So wait a minute, I can buy a DVD for like $15, or I can pay like $6 for this DivX that I can watch twice, and I need a special player to what? So this is not a modern business model. This is them trying to come up with some way to just keep raking in money. This is stupid. Like
Mhm.
you got to be innovative. This isn't it. Like you got to put out a free-to-play game for people to do microtransactions, you fucks. You don't
And
charge
nothing
for the
about this is
fucking
free-to-play.
free-to-play game and then charge for microtransactions on top of it. That's not how this works. This is a
their
well-established
free-to-play
fucking
game-
norm across the entire computing industry. Just literally go over to like PopCap or you know, like any game producer for the phone. Like I've got shitty games on my phone too that, you know, hey, I downloaded for free, and then, oh, you want to recharge your energy in the next 2 minutes? You got to pay 50 cents. Cool.
Well, it's funny
You
that you
fucked
mentioned
it up,
that because
Roland.
there's also a Roland Zencore app on your phone, which has nothing to do with this, even though it's named Zencore.
Awesome.
It's not compatible at all with this. It's a
That's-
piece of shit, but it has all microtransactions, so you can use like 4 DAW lanes or something, and like you can do a remix.
Oh
your
yeah,
DJs
I've got
can
that thing.
remix.
It wasn't as heinous, but yeah, they did want to
It
sell
was
you. They
pretty
did want to sell
gimp,
you
man.
like DAW lanes, like DAW tracks, which is kind of
This
messed
is-
up.
Yeah, like $20, you can get a Juno 106 on your phone. But here's my question: let's say you actually buy this, like now you can do sound design on a Juno 106, which apparently looks like shit. I don't know who's gonna do that. Who wants to use a Jupiter 8 that looks like that? half the point of using a Jupiter 8 is so you get like the nostalgic hit of using an interface that looks like a Jupiter 8. Who wants a modern GUI from Jupiter 8? But
I actually put
okay.
me down for that. I would like a modern interface to a Jupiter 8 because I don't want a wall of sliders that suck.
Okay,
just
okay.
don't.
So aside from code, no one wants that.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So but okay, like seriously, how hard is it to program a Jupiter 8? If you have a Jupiter XM, you call up the Jupiter 8 emulator, and then every slider, literally, it's one knob per function. Do you really need a VST for that to do those, to develop the library for that? Why do you need that at all? It's a one oscillator polysynth. This is not difficult
you
stuff.
you can absolutely. I'm all for reinventing the whole interface to something if you make it better. Like the Arturia, we were just talking about it today, the DX7V. Like fuck yes.
I think that was good
That's
stuff.
amazing. Like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a DX7. And then when you click on the back of it, it's like, yo, dog, here's this modern interface for actually controlling every aspect of your operators and modulators. And you're like, I love
100%
you.
with you. They did an awesome job with it too. This is not that though. This to me, this is Roland trying to Roland itself.
It
This
looks
is
cool.
Rolanding.
Rolanding. Yeah, it really is.
This is the most Roland thing ever, because they're also like, they use that line again where they're like, use vintage classics to create new tones, right? Like, and again, it's the same way they mine their past so hard. Like their big new release is literally just a bunch of synths that have come out and have been emulated by themselves many times. They repackaged concepts. This is just plug out, right? It's just plug out being reintroduced. They changed what, like the technology behind it. What was it? Analog circuit behavior. ACB was the big marketing term during the IRA and boutique era. Now it's ABM, analog behavior modeling. What? They changed the X. Is it something new?
Syndrome.
What is it?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same fucking thing over and over and over again. And this is like why I won't buy Roland stuff. Period. I know that some people really like what the new stuff, like the 101 and all that stuff that's coming out, but it's just the same rehash bullshit to me. And it's just kind of like it was okay when it came out originally, but there's so many people that are doing it anyway.
Analog IBS. I love it.
Yeah, it's the analog IBS totally, and I think that's the problem. Is it's just like I don't, and right now it's just kind of like who gives a shit at this point.
I'm
Roland
a person
is really good at shooting themselves in the foot, and they're not innovating. Period. I'm sorry, they're not. There's nothing that I've seen Roland coming out that is not new. Nothing's new.
Nothing about it is new. I have 7 pieces of Roland gear. I like them. I do not have any interest in like ecosystem aspect of it. In fact, that's one of the more pain in the ass things about it, but fine.
Agreed.
The only thing I have that is a straight sound generator other than MC101, and we'll get to that, is the TR8S. But literally it's like, hey, here's the XOX sounds that you want in the format that you need it. Boom, do it, and that's it. It's limited to that. I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that. And you can load your own samples, fine by me. MC101 is this Zencore bullshit. I dodged that. I'd even updated the firmware. Unless they put an arpeggiator on there, I'm not gonna get into like their environment. It's a cheap way to get tons of sounds I don't have. I get pianos on my rig because I have a MC1 on. That's all it is to me.
Dude, TR8S is like, hey, did you ever want like a Digitac that's preloaded with the XOX sounds, but has more like knob per function and sliders and stuff and more channel control, but does like half the things? Well, have we got the box for you? Because that's what it is. And it's pretty good at what it does. I like it. It's a well-built machine, and it does a lot of cool stuff, and it's very deep. It's exactly half as deep as a Digitac.
Right.
I love it. I'm able to rock the fuck out on it. I'm able to get exactly what I want. I get patterns going quickly. I get techno beats that I love. I find it to be that's the thing, is Roland shoots itself in the foot, and then it accidentally gets it right. The 2 IRA things I have that are really just a front end to my MX1 channels, those things are badass, by the way. Those are my only 2 Eurorack modules. Getting more later. Those things are both outstanding. The BitRaiser, I recommend everybody. I mean, that thing sounds fantastic. That is like the best bit crushing tool I've ever owned. And you can customize it with the app on your phone. That's really kind of weird, but it's also free. Roland didn't roll that. It's like they accidentally put out this amazing thing and then they discontinued it.
Right.
Roland is so fucking Rolandy. Like they accidentally innovated it and boom, it's gone.
Well, I mean, I want to go back to really quick because, like, you know, you mentioned the MX-1. That's a thing that would have been fucking brilliant, but they shot themselves in the foot with that thing.
They shot themselves in one foot, and then the other foot is dancing.
They shoved up their
That's how
ass.
the MX-1 works. It's amazing. It's the most inspired
Yeah.
gimped piece of gear on the planet.
It's a fantastic
I love it,
idea.
But
But
I'm also
they,
like, why?
yeah, well, why they've only made it work with their little ecosphere that no one bought into, and they're just like getting, and the stuff is barely available anymore. And you know that was such a good idea. And if they just said, okay, you know what, let's get rid of this USB bullshit, or make that USB work with whatever,
Or
then great.
make all
Tons
the
of
USBs
additional people
powered.
would have bought it.
Yeah,
That's
make
all.
the
Just
USB
make them
power.
powered.
Yeah,
Make them powered and make them open, not IRA.
Also, by
Yeah.
the way,
A lot of
I
people
just like
buy.
to put out there, if for some reason somebody watches this on VOD or whatever, and you happen to know somebody from Roland, put this part right in front of them for a moment. Hey, you fucks, you actually have the closest thing to perfection on the market and the only thing like it. If you made a Mark II, we'd all fucking buy one.
Dude, I'd pre-order.
Okay, so do that. I'd pay $1,000 for a decent performance mixer with all it, like the exact same feature set. Just fix these things. Make sending to aux faster. I don't want to turn a knob 7,000 times to the left in order to turn down an aux channel, okay? And I know you can press the little select buttons, but that's only if you've already preset that channel to 100, and I don't want to do that. So, fix that shit. Number two, if you're going to have IRA compatibility or Xenology compatibility or whatever the fuck ecosystem thing you decide to do, you must make it work with all of the devices. That means that if you have legacy devices that are also compatible with it, put power in the USB ports. It's not that hard. Guess what? I build computers for a living. I happen to know you just cheap the fuck out. You probably bought a little Renesas controller and didn't bother putting the 5-volt rail anywhere near that thing except to power the chip, and the chip only had enough power to power the first USB port because they're stacked in series, and you just said, fuck it, that's fine, because